Hey guys. Okay, so this week I normally combine chapters 11 and 12, which are kind of a DNA technology. They're kind of DNA technology topics. But I like to combine that with bioethics. And so normally when we're in class, we have basically a week-long conversation where every lecture we're discussing these different topics in bioethics. And it gives you an opportunity to kind of explore these topics a little bit and then to develop your own opinion about what you think is right or wrong. And so I'm going to do that. I'm going to do that remotely, and we're going to do it through a discussion. So this week, guys, your discussion is your quiz. It's worth 15 points. And so if you want credit for this quiz for chapter 11 and 12, you do have to complete this discussion. Okay, I haven't made it crazy hard. But before I do that, let me go into a little bit of a slideshow, okay, that I've put together. Okay, so bioethics. What is it? Here you go. It's an interdisciplinary field, meaning it's multiple different subjects, like school subjects if you think about, that examines the moral dimensions of decision-making in healthcare and the life sciences, okay? Or the critical examination of decision-making in health-related contexts and in contexts involving the biological sciences. What does all of that mean? Basically, it means we have all this technology now, all this sciencey stuff we can do, but who's to decide how we're going to use it? Okay, so we have the ability to clone humans. Should we? What for? What would happen if we did? What happened to those people if we did? Would they be like considered subhuman because we created them in a lab rather than the natural way? Okay. These are all questions that are of bioethical concern. But Dr. Malcolm from Jurassic Park, not Jurassic World, Jurassic Park, put it best. In fact, Jurassic Park has a ton of bioethics concerns. The franchise as Jurassic World continues with all of these bioethics topics. You have the ability to do something through science, but should you? Okay, I'll come back to this slide in a minute. My favorite quote of like all time and perfect for bioethics, when Dr. Malcolm is sitting at the table and he's just watched the Dino DNA video and he says, you were so preoccupied with whether or not you could, you didn't stop to think if you should. Okay? In fact, I think I'm going to attempt to let Dr. Malcolm say that for himself. But if you have a hard time hearing this for some reason, you can Google this little YouTube clip. Take it away, Doctor.
If I may, I'll tell you the problem with the scientific power that you're using here. It didn't require any discipline to attain it. You know, you read what others had done, and you took the next step. You didn't earn the knowledge for yourselves, so you don't take any responsibility for it. You stood on the shoulders of geniuses to accomplish something as fast as you could, and before you even knew what you had, you patented it and packaged it and slapped it on a plastic lunchbox, and now you're selling it. Well,
I don't think you're giving us our due credit. Our scientists have done things which nobody's ever done before.
Yeah, but your scientists were so preoccupied with whether or not they could, they didn't stop to think if they should.
Well said, Dr. Malcolm. Okay, so let me close this so it doesn't talk to me. That's where we're at. That's what bioethics is. That's the concern with bioethics, is just because we can should we? Okay, let me go back to this other slide here, maybe. If you remember, in Jurassic Park, although I'm surprised at how many of you guys haven't seen Jurassic Park because your generation is Jurassic World. It hurts my heart. Anyway, and Jurassic World is awesome. Love me some Chris Pratt. Fantastic writing. I really like it. But this stands the test of time. Anyway, if you remember that Jurassic Park took a mosquito that they found encased in amber, okay, which is like a petrified tree sap that trees have. And the hypothesis was this mosquito was alive during, the period of the dinosaurs and sucked dinosaur blood, and we can then go into this encased, protected mosquito, withdraw its last blood meal, and boom, or bingo, dino DNA, right? There's a lot of ifs with that particular hypothesis, but there it is nonetheless, okay? So the first thing was, all right, we can extract dino DNA, and we can mix it with other living organisms right now to fill in the gaps in the genome, which is what they did in Jurassic Park. And we can bring dinosaurs back, but should we? If you guys are working on the paper right now, you'll notice that one of the links I have is to the woolly mammoth and the fact that science is actively attempting to resurrect, bring back the woolly mammoth using these same DNA technologies and DNA genetic methods that were shown in Jurassic Park. And at the time of Jurassic Park, these were fairly new technologies, okay? We've come so far since then. So these are still topics today where we have to ask ourselves if we should, just because we can. Also, I need to point this out because I'm a huge science nerd. The part where the velociraptor is in the control room or in the projector room, you can see that it has all of these letters projected on its face. You guys recognize what these letters are now after our last lecture? So it's the genetic code. A, T, G's, and C's, DNA genetic code, which is, presumably the genetic code that brought this raptor back. If you ever want to talk about all of the issues with Jurassic Park, from the fact that this is not what a velociraptor would have looked like, to actually not issues, but just the fascinating way that they made some of the movie effects, please let me know. How did they make velociraptor, that kind of bark thing they had? Look up mating tortoises. It's a thing. Look it up. It'll be like, that's where they got that sound. Oh, moving on. Thank you again, Dr. Malcolm. Other bioethical issues. This is a short list, but here they are. So we've got artificial insemination and infertility options or treatments. The artificial womb. A lot of these, if you notice, are kind of around infertility issues. Birth control, cloning, of course. Gene therapy, kind of being able to manipulate genes for certain results. Human genetic engineering, everything from human cloning to messing with the human genome. I say messing with, but again, being able to alter it in a way that we decide for our purposes. Life support, life extension, assisted suicide, organ donation, population control. How many people is too many people? Stem cells, of course, okay? All of these and many more are issues that are all really of bioethical concern. Now, for a second, I want you to look at these issues and I want you to find two that stand out to you. Maybe two that you already have an opinion over. This is what we'd be doing if we were in class together. I want you to find two that you already have an opinion about. And then think about why you have that opinion. Where did it come from? When it comes to ethics, most of us have some kind of no, not most of us, all of us have some kind of moral code, moral center that we go back to when it comes to making decisions about things that are right and wrong. Everybody's moral center comes from their own life experiences and their own beliefs. So each person is unique in that way, right? So think about why you have the opinion you do and where that opinion came from. Did you used to have the opposite opinion, but because of some event, it's changed? Okay. Now I want you to pick one topic you don't really know much about and that you'd like to know more about. Pick that one. And you can either pause the lecture right here, or you can do it at the end of the lecture. But I want you to spend 5 minutes, that's it, 5 minutes, Googling that particular issue and see what comes up on it, okay? Bioethics is a great place to fall down rabbit holes. If any of you like to go rabbit hole diving at 3 in the morning when you can't sleep. Moving on. Okay, so we have all of these issues, right? Well, when is it okay and when is it not? As far as when is it okay for assisted reproductive technologies to be used and when is it not? You wonder about that? I need my inhaler today. I can't breathe, guys. Anyway. Here's an example of assisted reproductive technologies where you might be like, oh yeah, maybe I would wonder about that. You might not think much about a 30-year-old or a 35-year-old, maybe not even a 40-year-old deciding to go through artificial insemination or other infertility treatments so that they can get pregnant and have a baby. What if that person was 75? Is that okay? What are the implications of that? Even if the egg was completely healthy and the person carried it to term, how long is that 75-year-old going to live to parent that child? See what I mean? When is it okay? Let me go back to the other slide. Okay. I'm not going to touch abortion simply because I think most of you are pretty aware of both sides of the when is it okay and when is it not, and that you're also familiar with the different opinions that are wrapped around that. When it comes to bioethics, by the way, your opinion is your opinion, okay? So I'm not grading on that. I'm certainly not judging on it. I don't share my own opinion when we go into these issues. The point is that you think through it and that you understand and have an awareness of what your opinion is and where you got it. If you realize that your opinion comes from your uncle's next door neighbor, you know, you might want to be like, maybe I should go research that a little bit more and think through that, okay? If it comes from a TV show or a post you saw on Instagram, maybe that's something that you need to delve into a little bit deeper to see if that's really your opinion after you learn more about it, okay? So I'm not grading on that, just always interested in your willingness and your effort in learning about the topic and forming an educated opinion. Okay, let's look at human genetic engineering. This can be something that is done in vitro, meaning that you fertilize an egg cell outside of the human body with the intention to implant it into the mother and have her give birth, right? Well, in human genetic engineering, you can go in and manipulate genes. You can alter them. In some ways, you can even remove and replace them, okay? People don't really have a problem with that as much when you're talking about engineering that would remove a disorder or a deadly disease from the child. If they have cystic fibrosis, if the parents do, right? And then the child ends up, the egg that was fertilized ends up having cystic fibrosis. Well, you can go in there and remove that gene, replace it with a normal one, right? And then you don't have to worry anymore. That child no longer has that genetic information. Might have been there naturally, but we took it out. People don't seem to have as much of an issue with that concept, which by the way is not something we're really doing right now. The technology's there. But where there are more issues is, what if that baby's gonna be perfectly healthy, it doesn't have any genetic disorders, but I really wanted a blonde. What about that? Is it okay? It's the exact same technology. So I want my kid to have blonde hair and blue eyes. Is there a problem with that? If there is, why is it a problem? And who says it's a problem? So this is what I mean when I say, when is it okay? When is it okay to remove a gene? When is it okay to select for or against certain traits? It's fine to do it when it comes to saving a child from a disease, but not okay if you're selecting hair and eye color. Is none of it okay? Is all of it okay? You know what I'm saying? Okay. Now the big question is, who gets to decide if it's okay? Does the government get to decide? Religion? Doctors? Scientists? You? And by the way, if it's you, we have to break down into a whole other category. Should you only get to decide if you're an adult, if you're 18 or over? What if you're 17 and you have cancer and you won't want to be treated anymore? Do you have that right? Should you have that right? Or since you're technically still a minor, should that decision go to your parents? And by the way, if your parents want to stop treatment and you're 8 and you have cancer and you've told your parents at 8 that you don't want to keep doing this and your parents agree that you're not going to keep doing this, should the doctors and hospitals have the right to come in and take that child out of your home so that they can force treatment? Those are bioethics issues. If you're over 18, should you be able to decide for yourself only if you don't have any history of mental illness? By mental illness, that doesn't mean something like paranoid schizophrenia necessarily. Depression, anxiety, stuff like that. Who gets to decide? Okay? All of these things go into the complex issue that is bioethics. In the US, the courts have decided a lot of different debates, a lot of different concerns over this. Everything back from Roe versus Wade, which you may or may not be familiar with, was the abortion issue that went to court. Okay. Since then, it's continued as these issues get taken further and further up from doctors, from hospitals, from scientists, patients that are trying to fight for their rights, family members of patients who are trying to fight for their rights. Who gets to say? What do you think? Again, that's the point of this particular lecture, although it's technically not a lecture, but this is the point of these chapters. And these are the questions I want you to be able to answer. Speaking of parents, that was my mom. I just muted her. It happens. Anyway, these are the questions I want you to be able to answer when this week is over. Okay? So to quickly review, 2 bioethics issues that you already know about. I want you to know why you think that, when you started thinking that, where that belief came from. 1 bioethics issue that you don't know much about, but you want to know more, that you spend 5 minutes at the end of this researching just to get a taste of what it is. I want you to be able to tell me when you think it's okay to do some of these things, or when it's okay for a person to donate their organs and when it's not, or if it's ever, or if it's always, okay? When is it okay? And then I want you to know who should decide. And again, these are going to be your opinions, because everything that you look up is going to have both sides. And I want you, after reading both sides, to decide what you align yourself with, okay? And they can change over the years, because as we get older, they do. We have different experiences. Those experiences shape our beliefs, our responses, and then all of a sudden we come at these things from a different angle, right? Okay, hopefully that all made sense. Your assignment, not only can I not breathe, I can't think. Let me see. Switch over here to, I want this. Okay. Your assignment is here. It is under chapter 11 and 12 module, Bioethics. What I've done is I basically gave you a link to an article, this article. I did not pick something crazy in depth or crazy hard, okay? Just enough to get you thinking past what we're doing in this lecture. Is it ethical to have a national DNA database? Basically, this article is going to go into talking about, if you submit your DNA to Ancestry, should that information be public? Should you be able, or should researchers be able to use your genetic information that you willingly, freely submitted to conduct studies? What about prisoners? Prisoners, probably not quite the word I'm looking for. What about criminals? People that have been arrested and have been printed because they're going to be booked and charged, okay? Should those fingertips, I can do this. I can. Should those fingerprints be available to everyone, not just law enforcement? Should people doing ancestry searches be able to research people that have criminal backgrounds because their fingerprints on file? Okay, you're gonna read through this. You can click on these, which are pros and cons again about the having a national DNA database. Notice that the question at the end is, what do you think? Same thing, what do you think after educating yourself, that I'm asking? Or frankly, you can just skip down here and you can read through all of them. Is a national DNA database useful for police investigating crimes? Here they are, yeses and nos. Does having a national DNA database help eliminate discrimination? Gosh, yes or no. Keeping a national DNA database financially viable? Does it take into consideration an individual's human rights? Is the privacy of these individuals protected? So on and so on. Okay, that's the article you're going to read in those topics. Then here, you are going to select one of those topics, okay? One from that article you read, and you're going to decide where you stand on it and why. So basically what I've asked you to do in the lecture right now, only now you're going to do it for this article I've given you. Share your stance in a discussion post and include points from the article provided to support your position, okay? So, hey, no, I don't agree with it, and these are a couple of the cons that were listed that I'm worried about too. You do need to reply to somebody else's post, at least one person. I'm not going to go in and count the number of people you've replied to, but I do want to see that your replies have been meaningful and thought through, okay? So again, not that you're going to be like, hey, great post, man, I totally agree. Why do you agree? Or why do you disagree? You can disagree on here, that's fine, as long as you are respectful and courteous and kind. People's opinions are their opinions. They have them for a reason. You don't know what their life experiences have been, okay? Here's a little rubric to help you know how you're gonna earn those 15 points for this quiz, and you have until next Monday to turn it in. Hopefully I covered everything, and you could see through all of the awkwardness and my inability to speak / breathe. Allergies and panda asthma. It's not a good combination. Anyway, oh my gosh. You guys, I need to show you something. Yes, I'm really going off on this tangent, but I just have to because it's rather shocking. I do live in Texas, and yes, everything is bigger in Texas, and I do mean everything. Oh, come on, let me see if I can get a good, I can't get a good angle on that stupid thing. Bummer, because it's like this long, and it's called a paper wasp, and it's stung. I can't get it good. It's so gnarly looking. Look up paper wasp, look it up. It stung my son a couple of days ago at the pumpkin patch, so it was before Halloween. It was really big. So not only can you have lovely, wonderful allergies here in Austin, apparently it's the cottonwood, everything is freaking ginormous, including wasps and mosquito bites. I'm gonna leave it at that because I I don't know if I have the most positive things to say about Texas today. Moving on. I digress. But hey, that's what you get when you have lecture with me. I wander a bit. Kind of shows you what happens inside my head. Are you scared? All right, that's it. As always, if you have questions about anything that I've covered, if you want to put something else in your discussion post, or send me an email about one of the topics that we covered in class or in the lecture today, feel free. Normally, like I said, we'd be having a large class discussion on it, okay? All right, guys, talk to you soon.